We're here with Jennifer Tilley. Jennifer has been in the round poker for a long, long time. Welcome to a special edition of the interview. This is the WSOP edition. We have an amazing series of great players here for you this week. And I've been trying to get Jennifer on the show for a long time, long time.
That's right.
And
I can
you've been a
attest to
busy
that.
person. You've been a
Yes.
busy person.
Mhm.
And Jennifer and goes way back. She has been an actress for many, many years. How old were you when you started acting?
Many years. I moved out to Los Angeles when I was 19 years old.
Okay.
So, and then I spent the first 4 years selling sandwiches out of a hamper and building sets at the group repertory theater in the Valley, hoping one day I would be a full-fledged member and could audition for the plays. So I've been here for a long time. I consider myself a Los Angelesite. I've been here forever.
What was your first audition that landed you a part that you were like proud of to get?
Well, when I first moved to Hollywood, I got drumlug. I knew exactly what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do. My dad dropped me off at the Hollywood YMCA. It was very grim. He had so much trepidation, like, "Oh, my beautiful daughter, it's the Hollywood YMCA," and then he went back home. And I went in because there's a book called Acting Professionally, and that was one of the
Yeah.
places that they said you could stay. And I remember it was so gray, and there was a little black and white TV, and it was bolted to the wall. And the first night I was there, I watched Cher on Johnny Carson. And I thought one day I'm going to be on Johnny Carson, and then of course one day I was. That's how old
Yep.
I am. But got an apartment the next day. I just went in the Yellow Pages and I looked up apartments for rent, and I bought a drama log, and I dumped my suitcase off in the apartment. And there was an audition for a play that I had wanted to do in college but didn't get because college, a lot of it is about popularity and not about
Yeah.
skill. And so I drove. I didn't know there were bad parts of town. I drove all the way down to Normandy and Slauson. That's where
Oh,
the riot started. That's where they pulled that kid out of the truck and beat the shit out of him. And that's where the theater was. It was called the Fox Follies Theater. And in Dramalog, it said a multi-ethnic version of Vanities. And I was like, multi-ethnic, that's
okay.
me, because I'm half Chinese. But it was an all-black version of Vanities, except for myself. And I was, because I was so delightful. So I was the one person in the play that wasn't black. And I got a Dramalog Award off of it. And it was a great production.
Wow, that's a great start. Now, Jennifer's been nominated. Do have one thing in common, but they're very far apart. I have
Mm-hmm.
also worked on a Woody Allen movie.
Oh,
Jennifer was
neat.
nominated for an
Uh-huh.
Academy Award for Bullets Over Broadway. She was brilliant. And I was a young actor coming up through college, and then I studied at the Neighborhood Playhouse 2-year program and knew Sandy Meisner. But I worked on Hannah and her sisters as an extra
Oh, one
in
of
the
my
chorus
favorite
line.
movies.
Yeah, the chorus line alley, right there on near Broadway, the alley right there.
Mhm.
And I've never seen a director. I've worked on a bunch of films too, but not like you. But he moved things along so fast. Okay, we're done, and he moved
Right.
it so fast. We're like done in half a day. The extras are gone.
It's an actor's dream to work with him because it gets boring. Usually they'll do a master and then a tighter master and then over the shoulder, two shot, tighter two shot, close up, extreme close up, extreme close up. So you just have to replicate everything as fast as possible. The only other people that I know that worked like this was Robert Altman and Bogdanovich, who I've worked with some brilliant directors. He put the camera on wheels and he would just wheel around and capture things that were going on. He only did 2 cutaway shots, and that's when the maid came in. He did a single of her in the door going, this looks like it's gonna be a terrible play. So, but basically, he liked everybody to improvise, and that's why he liked me, is because I could fill it. I'm really good at filling in the empty spots.
Yeah.
So he especially likes when something goes wrong, like if the chandelier falls from the ceiling. No, you don't. He doesn't go, cut. Oh my God, who didn't nail that chandelier to the ceiling? He loves when everybody deals with it. Like, oh no, what do we do now? So a lot of the takes that he used when something went wrong. For example, there was a scene where I was supposed to light my cigarette, my lighter wasn't working, and so I turned to my boyfriend, who was like the big mafia guy. And I go, sweetheart, can you please? And he got really nervous because we hadn't rehearsed it and it wasn't in the script. And he's fumbling for his lighter. And then he gets out and he's going, and he can't get it up because he's so nervous that he has to do something that wasn't in the script. And I have my cigarette like this. And I say to John Cusack, I go, oh, no manners, like that. And then he finally gets it lit. And that's what Woody is. He loves when people behave in real like have real behavior.
Right.
And all the crew loved working with Woody because we were always done by 7 o'clock because he wanted to go to the Knicks game. I don't think we've ever filmed past 7 o'clock. So it's just the
Wow.
easiest day. And you get to do something different every time, which is an actor's dream.
Very cool. The
You know, it's
only
really funny because every time I said that I wanted to do something, like my husband at the time, Sam Simon, said, "You should be in a Woody Allen movie because all the women in Woody Allen movies get Oscar nominations." And I had my agent call up and said, "Jennifer wants to be in a Woody Allen movie." And Juliet Taylor, his casting director, says, "Well, they usually cast New York actors that he knows." So I went to New York and I got in a play. And then my agent called up and said, "Jennifer's a New York actor now. Maybe Woody would like to come and see Jennifer in her play." And instead, he's looked at you have a little reel which has
yeah.
scenes that you do, and he thought that I would be perfect for Olive. And how I got the part is he gave me 10 pages to do, and we hadn't been able to look at it ahead of time. And I would lose my place in the scene, and then I would just make up stuff until I found my place again. And the audition scene was the entire first scene in the movie where I'm yelling at my boyfriend for getting me black oysters and saying they probably came from defective black pearls, and saying they probably came from defective oysters. But I have a tremendous ability to, when I write something down or say I want to do something, to do it. Like I did a little play in high school where I played one of the girls by the jukebox that ran over and kissed the Fonz, who was this tall, pimply faced boy. And I went home. I loved my little brush with stardom. And I wrote in my journal, one day I'm going to go to Hollywood and kiss the real Fonz. And be careful what you wish for, because I ended up playing Henry Winkler's girlfriend for a whole season. I think we might have filmed 13 episodes, but it might have been 26 episodes. And every single episode, I got to kiss the Fonz. But it's funny how things turn out because he wasn't really the Fonz. He was Henry Winkler. And then I also, when I used to play a game called the World Series of Poker, I'm sure you've heard this story. And it took me about 8 years to figure out how to get to the final day. And one day I won the gold bracelet in this game, the World Series of Poker. And the screen filled up with money. And then there was a gold bracelet on top, a virtual gold bracelet. And I wrote my book, one day I'm going to go to the World Series of Poker and I'm going to win a real gold bracelet. And the first year I went to the World Series of Poker, I won a real gold bracelet. So I'm very good at manifesting.
Is this one way that you bring it out of the ethers and write it down? Because the famous story, Jim Carrey did the same thing, going up and
Yeah.
saying, "I'm going to be this, have this much money," put a check in his wallet. So he manifested out of thin air, put it there, and he did a few years later.
I
So
love that
is that
story.
one of your manifesting things you would recommend to
I
people?
think so. When you write it down, it crystallizes a thought and
Yeah.
it crystallizes what you want. And I cannot tell you how many people that I've met that when I was growing up, like, I was a huge fan of John Travolta's from Welcome Back, Cotter. And, now I have a picture of myself in my arm around John Travolta, like, yeah, we're buddies. And I used to watch reruns of It Takes a Thief with Robert Wagner with my grandma. And then I came to Hollywood and I was in a movie with Robert Wagner. So it's really funny. Oh, even being on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I was a Real Housewives super fan. And it's so bizarre because you think like, oh, it'd be fun to be on the show and wear glamorous dresses, go to exotic locations. And then all of a sudden, one of my best friends, Sutton, got on the show. And I thought, I wonder if I made it happen by being so obsessed with the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And then they asked me to be on the show. And then last season, I was on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So I think when you obsess about things, then it brings it closer into your orbit, at the risk of sounding like, some sort of new agey, like kook.
Not at all. That manifestation is a law of attraction,
Mhm,
energy, like energy, and putting it out there. I think
mhm,
I've always wanted to be a positive force in poker. I've been very lucky to work with some amazing people,
mhm,
including your man, Phil Locke, who's
mhm.
been doing pretty well in tournaments. Can you talk a little bit about, you got to be proud of him
Well,
recently?
Phil is so amazing because he took a lot of time. He got interested in some other things and he took a lot of time off from poker. I think he really didn't actually play poker for maybe about 10 years because he was doing all these other wheeling and dealing, being a mogul, as he says it, moguling. And then he decided he really missed poker and he wanted to get back to it. And now he's plays every Wednesday and Thursday on the live stream at the Commerce Casino, which you do such a magnificent job of doing commentary in the
Thank
booth.
you.
And I thought it was about 4 months ago, but it was in September. He won the Legends of the Bike tournament
You did?
for 300, I think it was $360,000.
Not bad.
And it's astonishing now. They took this big picture, so there's a huge poster of him on the wall as one of the winners of this tournament, which is one of the most prestigious ones in Southern California. And then in the last 2 weeks, he made two final tables, and
I
both of
know.
these tournaments was over like 1,500. So he like beat out 1,500 to make these final tables. He's been playing all these tournaments over at the Commerce, which are the WSOP
Yeah.
circuit tournaments. He's cashed in every single one of them except for I think two. So every day he goes to the casino and he cashes. He's going to become like the Alan Kessler, the Alan Kessler of the Commerce Casino, because without fail he always cashes. It's almost always cashes, and it's amazing. And I'm so proud of him. And I'm learning so much about poker because when he comes home, he wants to watch because he wants to see what the other people had, and
Yeah.
if people bluffed him or whatever. So I sit on the sofa, and this is when I first started dating Phil, he gave me lots of tips until all of a sudden I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Wait, you play poker your way, I'll play poker my way. Like Phil plays poker the right way. But it's like, well, I don't play poker the way that you do. And so it's actually can teach me a lot better than if he's watching me play poker. Like I play on high stakes poker, and I just
Of
was
course.
doing Poker Stars Big Game just came out, and I do No Gamble No Future. It sinks in a lot more if I'm playing like Jack 7 offsuit or something, where he's like, well, I don't know if that's really a good hand to open up with under the gun. I'm like, hey, you play poker your way. This is a loose group of people that like to throw money around. I want to play as many hands as possible. But now we watch Phil, and Phil will do the lesson just like really discreetly with the other people. It's like, oh, that guy's not so good. And, oh my God, look what he's opening with. I'm like, I play that. And he's like, wow, you know what? It's not really advisable. So it's easier for me to get the lesson when he's talking about other people or even talking about himself. Like, oh, I made a huge mistake there. I didn't raise enough. I should have raised more. And when
Right.
I'm watching Phil, I'm always like, you should play more hands, Phil, because I'm an action junkie. It's like, oh, Phil's waiting for a hand, and it's like, okay, all right. Oh, he's playing a hand, but Phil almost always comes home with that live stream up money, which is different from
True.
me when I play a lot of poker on TV. I'm not as consistent as Phil. Let's put it that way, but I have a fabulous time.
Was Phil part of your poker beginnings? Don't obviously we both love Phil so much, but I
Mhm.
remember you guys met. Did you meet at the Bellagio playing tournaments, or how did you guys meet real quickly? Were you already involved in poker a little bit when
Mhm.
you were just playing in
Okay,
Vegas?
I always loved poker. My dad, as the family whispered, had a poker problem. He's the one that gave me that video game, the World Series of Poker, which was fabulous. And whenever I was doing movies and stuff, I would teach everyone how to play poker. I'd always
Wow.
travel with my poker chips. I play poker with the Teamsters in between scenes, and playing for my per diem. And I started thinking like, wow, I just want to play more poker. And the first well, I played that Celebrity Poker Bravo Showdown, which is barely poker. Remember, I
Phil
think
Gordon thing, yeah.
Phil Gordon and Dave Foley were the hosts, and then Phil Gordon was replaced by Phil Hellmuth, and every celebrity in town went on. It was more like of a personality thing, and you had a lot of people on that they're like astonished that they're like, I won. How did I win? And they're like, well, you made a straight. And they're like, a straight? What is that? So it wasn't really prestigious as a poker player to be on it, but everybody watched the show. It was like really fun to watch. So I played on that, and then I played on WPT had their answer to the Bravo Poker Showdown, and it was called Hollywood. I think it was called Hollywood Hold'em. And so I played on that, and that's when I met Daniel Negreanu, Jennifer Harmon. I remember Jennifer Harmon, she's so little and petite, and girl next door, but she was wearing, because they were the poker advisors to the celebrity, she was wearing this
Okay.
little like leather corset. I think she might have been wearing it over a shirt or something like that. And who was on the show was James Woods, and James Woods, really prides himself on
Good
being a good
play, yeah.
poker player. He knew them. He was like, "Oh, Daniel Negreanu, I subscribed to your something. I don't know if you had a newsletter." He's like, "Oh, Jennifer Harmon, Jennifer, it's such an honor. You're such a brilliant player." And I was like, "Oh, should I know these people?" So they each, the way that they did it, they had somebody that they would bet on, and
Right.
I think Daniel Negreanu took me. You have to take somebody. We're all horrible. It was me. Daniel Baldwin
Oh yeah.
was a little cray cray. And that, I mean, he was kind of a wild poker player. James Woods, Min Na Win, what
And
Min
when?
Na Win. She still plays poker.
Yes, she does.
She still plays poker, and it became between it was James Woods got knocked out. It was between me, Ming Na Win, and Daniel Baldwin, and then I got knocked out, and then it's heads up between the two of them. But I ran into James Woods a few days later, and he was like, "Oh, da 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 da," and I was 46% to do this, and he had all these numbers. He's like, it's no secret that he's like almost a member of Mensa. He's incredibly talented, and I was like, "Wow, he really takes his poker seriously." So then I went to the celebrity poker, the celebrity invitational, which
Heck,
is, I'm sure you're familiar with it, the WPT. Oh, because I gave my phone number to Vince Van Patten and Mike
oh yeah.
Sexton, you're doing the commentary. So I gave my phone number to Vince Van Patten and I was like, hey, if there's any if you keep your ear to the ground and there's any poker games around. He took the phone number and then I think he thought Jennifer would be a good person to date my brother. He has a brother that hangs out at the Playboy Mansion all the time, who's actually a really, really nice guy. But then he had my phone number, so he called me for the celebrity invitational or gave it to WPT, and they called me because he's like, "Oh, she gave it to me. She wants to play more poker tournaments." So that's when I met Phil. And
Okay.
when I went to the celebrity invitational, you get a little taste of poker and you just want more, more, more. And
Yeah.
I wanted to meet a poker player that I could hang out. I was trying to make men into my platonic friends. But I was a little hottie back then. I don't even realize it. And so I was running around, getting phone numbers for people. I wanted to go to the Commerce Casino or the Hollywood Park or whatever with a poker player who could kind of show me the ropes. But Phil knew that's what I wanted. So he's like, I don't want to be her poker mentor. I want to be her boyfriend. And so at the end of the night, he goes, hey, how can I get a hold of you? And I go, oh, I thought myself as quite the celebrity. I could give you your phone number. Maybe I'll call you sometime. I got home. I'd been drinking a little bit. I reached in my pocket. There were all these crumbled up phone numbers. I'm like, oh my God, who are these people? And I threw them away. Then I ran into Phil 4 months later at another poker tournament, a celebrity poker tournament at the Hard Rock. He's like, there's that girl. And he was coming out of an office with Antonio. And I went, there's that kid that likes me and his friend, his buddy Antonio. Phil's
Right.
younger than me. It's no no mystery. And so then Phil is like, he's like, I'm gonna get her phone number this time. He said he went to dinner because I had all the chips, and then he came back and I didn't have any of the chips. I'm like, that happens sometimes, especially with me. And then he ran into me at the Bellagio. He came downstairs, and I was at the Bellagio playing poker. And
Right.
he was sitting behind me and sort of hitting on me, and I was laughing because he's super awkward. I mean, his courting style leaves something to be desired. And then at the end, he had to go because he had a plane out of there. He had to leave for the plane at 4 in the morning. And he said he practiced this. He goes, but he was really embarrassed because it was some of his buddies were at the table and they were all kind of staring at him like, look, Phil's hitting on Jennifer Tilly. But he said, I practiced it. He's going to say it. He said, if she says that to me again, I'm going to say this. He goes, how can I see you again? I go, give me your phone number and I'll call you sometime. And he goes, that's what you said the last time. He goes, I'll tell you what. You give me your phone number because it's only 3% you call me, but it's 100% I
Uh,
call you. So I couldn't argue with that logic. And I was also really embarrassed that I didn't even remember giving him the same line like 4 months ago. So anyway, he called me, and the rest, as they say, is history. 20
yeah,
years later, we've been together for over 20 years. It's
I
amazing.
know.
He's the
That's
best boyfriend
amazing.
in the whole world.
He's amazing.
I had to get him to move in with me though because he would be coming over. He was living at the Commerce Casino at the time, as one does, as the poker
Yeah.
players do. And he'd be like, "Okay, I'm coming over." And then like 5 hours go by. I'm like, "Hello, where are you?" He's like, "Oh, as I was leaving my room, there was a really good poker game, and I just sat down." I thought, I gotta get in a situation where Phil is not leaving at the Commerce Casino. I totally understand the compulsion to sit down in a really good game when you're on your way to visit your girl, but I gotta get him in a place where he doesn't walk past a good game on the way out. So I sort of lured him into my house, and then he kind of started living with me, and then we kind of started becoming boyfriend girlfriend, and it was great.
I think it kind of worked out. And so, what year was this? Because I was curious. I watched you play, and I watched Phil play tournaments, and you
Yep.
do You both played differently. So I
Mhm.
remember you were a very aggressive player back in the early days of.
And I
Uh,
still am.
I
Yes.
know you are,
Yeah.
but watching you play was different. There was no solvers back then in
Mhm.
2005. You won a bracelet at the WSOP Ladies event, and very aggressive player, and you're just knocking everybody out. And I
Mhm.
said, that's not the way that I've seen Phil play. So
Right.
was he critiquing your play? I figured he was also coaching you at the same time.
In the
That
beginning, he was coaching me, got sent me set up with a PokerStars account. He gave me all these books to read, and I read them all and everything. And yeah, so in the beginning, he was very, very good teacher, obviously. But then I kind of developed my own style. I'm an action junkie, so I like to be in action. This is why I like to play six max or even
yeah,
eight max. I love playing Poker Go Studio because you're playing. It's almost always seven people. Sometimes it's six people. I hate playing full ring tables. If there's a 10-handed table like they do at the World Series of Poker, forget about it. I'm not playing any 10-handed tables, and I'm not playing any tournaments that start at 10 in the morning. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck? We're poker players. How can you have a tournament that starts at 10 in the morning? So actually noon is early for me. I love playing the 2 o'clock tournaments. But the advice I always give to girls who have, want to play poker and, they want advice, I say, you never want to be, I do a boxing metaphor. You never want to be the one that's up against the ropes, kind of covering your face, going, don't hit me anymore. You want to be the one doing the punching.
for sure.
And so that's like, if you're going to call, that's like when if people are betting and you're calling, but you have this anxiety, like, please don't raise anymore, don't bet anymore. You want to be the one betting. You want them to be guessing, what is she betting with, instead of just being a passive or being a victim and being like, well, I'll just call and I don't know how many more streets I can call. It's better for you to be doing the betting. If you're going to put the money anyway, you do the betting. So I say that to girls. This is the advice I give to girls. You want to be the one hitting, you don't want to be the one being hit. And the advice Phil would give to, I have all these, like, uh, uh, movie starlet girlfriends that they go to the Commerce Casino and they haven't played poker anymore. And this is the advice Phil would give them. He goes, if your if your cards add up to a good blackjack hand, go all in. So if it's like king queen or ace queen or
Right,
ace
right.
queen, it's just pretty good advice because those charity tournaments go really fast.
For beginners.
Mhm.
I was going to
I
ask
also
you.
I say to girls too, like my actress friends, I say if you've raised pre-flop, if there's an ace on the flop, always bet because they think the girl always has an ace.
That's true. Then what's the actress name who's on Curb Your Enthusiasm? She's a player too,
Oh,
right?
Shoreline. She's very, very enthusiastic about poker, and she actually did the movie The Grand, where she played the character I know was based on Kathy Liebert. That she
Okay,
played a very strong poker player who was married to Ray Romano. I remember it all, and Ray Romano was very into fantasy football. But I met with me and Phil and Antonio. We all met with I think his name was Zach, somebody or another, and he just picked our brain. We met with him several times, and we told him all about the poker world and everything. And then
yeah,
I was kind of insulted because he sort of implied that I would have a really big part in it. And then he just wanted me and Phil and Antonio to be like local color extras and play ourselves. And so I
right,
said no, because he was filming during the World Series of Poker. And that time I was pretty obsessive about playing every tournament I possibly could to, try and get another bracelet.
right.
Uh, my ex-husband Sam Simon said to me, the worst thing that can happen to somebody the first time they go to Las Vegas is to win, if you
Yeah,
think about it, because then you think it's really easy and you're always chasing that high. And it's kind of true because the first year I went to the World Series of Poker, I won the gold bracelet and it was
I know.
kind of easy. And I thought, oh, I just want to win more. Like I got it. And I've been chasing that high for like 20 years. It's actually very difficult to win a gold bracelet at the World Series of Poker, I found. But I'm hoping to win one this summer.
Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But
I
talk
said
about
to
your
Phil, I
evolution.
was reading an article where they were talking to the guy at Standard Oil, and they said, "How much?" This was about 10 years ago. They said, "How do you find more oil than everybody else?" And they go, "It's easy. We dig more holes." And I said to Phil, "We have to dig more holes." And I was using it as an analogy for we have to enter more tournaments if we want to get our stats up and win more. I don't know, bracelets, circuit rings, trophies, whatever it is. Then we have to play more tournaments.
You're in an interesting position. Our editor even said, Jennifer is probably one of the most liked people in poker. Everybody loves Jennifer.
Mhm.
So watching you in high stakes poker, how did that evolution of being on that a lot and loving playing and No Gamble, No Future? Were you an early fan of the show and then got on it? Because you're one
Oh,
of the
yeah.
favorites on it. So how did that evolve?
Maury wanted me to be on the show in the first incarnation of it, and Phil was on it almost all the time. In fact,
Yeah,
little known fact, Phil is one of the most, I think he might be the most winning player on high stakes poker, which is like he's kind of like a poker ninja. He slides in there. You don't notice him playing any hands. At the end of the day, he has the most chips.
that's the way you should do it.
But back then, I didn't play high stakes poker. I did not play high stakes poker, and I think it was 100K buy-in or 50K buy-in, which is a huge amount of money to me. But I would say high stakes poker, the show is the gold standard, and now especially they've got like they have Nick Schulman and AJ Benza. And before that, they had,
Dave
the
Kaplan, right?
wonderful Gabe Kaplan and Norm MacDonald. So it has so much history and nostalgia associated with it. A lot of times I'll be playing on high stakes poker, and people will say, my big dream was to be on high stakes poker, and I watched it growing up or when I was younger. And here I am. It really is sort of like the Mount Olympus of, poker things you want to cross off your bucket list. Well, I just really love doing it. I always have a good time. They like me very well, which is very important. And I'm usually playing with people I know, but I like to play with people who are very good with the needle. Like I love playing with Rob Young because sometimes I don't like to play with people. First of all, I don't like to play with people that can't afford to lose. They're taking a shot. You feel
Yeah.
so bad. They lose a big pot, and then this sort of darkness descends on them, like Pigpen Alley at a cloud, and you just see them like, oh no, oh no. That you feel bad for them. So I don't like to play
Yeah.
with people that can't afford to lose. I don't like to play with people that are too sensitive. Like when somebody, sometimes people cry. They
Really?
feel so bad, and I'm really sensitive to energy. Yeah, and that's a lot of times the crying is like it's like somebody taking a shot. But I love to play with people that lose it. Like here's people who lose a big pot and laugh. Nick Airball has a great sense of humor. Love to
He
play with
does.
him. Love to play with Rob Young. Rob Young is so funny, and he just gets the needle in. He's so
Yeah.
sarcastic and funny. Love to play with Phil Hellmuth, of course. He's the goat. Phil is very, very funny with his stories and everything. JRB, he's the greatest. JRB is. I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, I don't want to play with any pros or people that are better than me." I love playing with Phil Ivey and people like that because everybody's just a poker player. Sometimes people get publicity like the greatest poker player that ever lived. Like, for example, I think some of the people that are, people think they are great, but like there's Jason Kuhn and all these people that are brilliant. But at the same time, they say, oh, that person just puts his pants on one leg at a time like the rest of us. They're getting two cards just like the rest of you. So I love it because it ups my game to play with people that are really brilliant. Because then when you're playing with people that are better than you, you get better.
You
And
learn. Yeah.
Antonio's a person I love to play with. He totally understands putting on a show. So he's not like he understands, yes, one of the goals is to make money, but the main goal is to put on a show. And I like to play with people that they're having a good time and they're engaging in banter. Sometimes when I'm playing on high stakes poker, the people that are just there to take the money, it's kind of not so much fun because they're sort of like
Right.
an empty chair in terms of entertainment value. I mean, they're actually sitting in the chair, but they're just sitting there, being the greatest poker player in the world and not really engaging with anybody. And I think the appeal of shows like that is it reminds you of your home game. And that's why people like to watch. They see you having fun. They go, look, they're having fun. Just like I do at my home game with
Right.
Joey and Elmer and Fred.
Well, I've
The key
watched you
to high
play.
stakes poker is not to lose more money than you win. That's the key.
uh, Well, of course. I
Yes.
mean, but I've watched you play, and
Mhm.
Eric Person puts you in some tough spots. It seems like you enjoy battling with Eric a bit. He's got a good sense of humor, and he can afford to lose or win.
Eric is so fun and he's like a really good sport. See,
He
the
is
thing is, when you play with people that are used to playing high stakes poker, they can take a hit because they understand that you lose 100,000 now. 20 minutes later, you win 200,000 more. If
Yeah,
if they're used to playing high stakes poker all the time, so that's where you get people that like when I played with Garrett Adelstein, who's a great player, and he was
great
such a
player.
good sport. I won a huge pot off of him, and he goes, great hand, Jennifer. So that's where it's really fun to play with these guys that are used to playing at these stakes, and I like a challenge. I like being challenged.
Me
Mm.
too. So give me one story. I was writing notes as you were talking,
Mhm.
and you did bring Chucky to one of the high
Yes.
stakes. I can't remember which game you brought. Chucky was there, and it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, you know what? It was a live stream, and I could see it was going to be a circus because at that time, Berkey and Nick Airball had this feud. They were doing a
oh
one-on-one.
yeah,
It was a huge feud, and everyone was talking about. So they had Berkey and Nick Airball, and then Doug Polk jumped in, and then Rob Young, and I said, and then they added Berkey's ex girlfriend,
Lynn,
Lynn,
Lynn
yeah,
G, yeah, no Lynn.
Lynn J. So they were adding all these elements. And then somebody said to me, I forget who it was. Oh, Jay Farber said, I said, oh, well, I'm just, because I had already been cast in that before they decided to make it this grand three-ring circus,
Drama,
huge
yeah.
feud. And he said, and it was going to be a live stream, which is unusual for high stakes poker. So Jay Farber, I said, I'm just gonna duck down and try to avoid flying chairs. And Jay Farber said to me, if I know you, Jennifer, you're going to be the instigator of chaos. So I enjoyed that. And I had a tiara made that said, the
You,
instigator of chaos,
I
because
remember.
I thought, you know what, this show is going to be good, campy, fun. And then somebody made a poster for that episode. And in the poster, they had Chucky in the poster. And so I thought I would bring my Chucky doll to emulate the poster where Chucky was over my shoulder. And so that's how Chucky showed up at the poker game. And it just added to the really bizarre, surrealist environment of that game. The game was insane. It was off the hook.
Wasn't that the game that Berkey was stuck between Airball and Polk, and they were all back and
That
forth?
was the one. That was the game.
Weird
Yes.
drama. Do you have one story you played with some of the best and OGs of the game? Do you have a Doyle story at all? I was just curious.
I have a lot of Doyle stories. I played with Doyle a lot, but
I know.
Doyle is he's great. I do have hmm, I I don't really have a Doyle story per se, but I have played with him a lot, and I love playing with Doyle, and he was a sweetheart, and I think Doyle really enjoyed being around me. Oh, there. Okay, there was when they decided to do cash games. Was it Poker Go or WPT? They decided to do a cash game, and I'm lucky I'm dating Phil because they always ask Phil. And then lots of times Phil will say no. And then I
Right.
go, oh, pick me. So they decided to do a cash game. I think it might have been the first high stakes poker when they're bringing high stakes poker back. And I showed up, and here's somebody that I love to play with, but I don't like to play with because I cannot figure him out. It's Rick Solomon because he's
He
so
is crazy.
fucking funny. He's crazy. I play with him, used to play with him a lot in some home games, but he's fearless. So you
Yeah.
can never raise him off his hand, and I don't even try. If you raise the pot, he's thinking, "Oh, she's making the pot bigger for me." The pot somehow, when I'm playing with him, always seems to go in his direction. But so anyway, this game was supposed to be. Maury said, "Oh, it's going to be some celebrities, maybe a pro or two, but it's mostly going to be rich businessmen." Which I was at that time unfamiliar with this breed known as rich businessmen.
Right.
So I was walking down the hallway. The one person I was most worried about was Rick Solomon because I knew he was playing. I was walking down the hallway and I saw Rick Solomon walking towards me really fast. And I go, oh, where are they filming? And he goes, down there. And I go, but you're going this way. What's happening? He goes, oh, I forgot something in my room. He goes, here, I'll walk you to the venue. So I go in the venue. I walk in there. It's Johnny Chan, Doyle Brunson, I think Antonio Esfandari, like all the Phil
Wow.
Ivey, all the poker greats. There were no rich businessmen. The one rich businessman was Rick Solomon, and he just fled. And Rick forgot something in his room, but he never came back because what Rick is good at is game selection. So I was like the little guppy in the sea of piranha. But I looked at this and I said, everyone's going to watch it. Look, Doyle Brunson, Johnny Chan, Phil
I
Ivey.
know.
I want to play in this game because everyone's going to watch it. So I had one bullet.
Okay.
Now I always try to have three bullets because I was poor back then. So I had one bullet, and I think we bought in for I don't know if it was $100,000 or 50,000, but it was big. I might have been 50. It was a lot. I
Right.
had one bullet and I flopped. I was playing my favorite hand, which is no longer my favorite hand, 2-3 suits, and I flopped a straight. And Doyle Brunson, I went all in. Doyle Brunson called. He flopped a higher straight because I was
Oh,
playing 2-3, 4-5-6. He was playing 7-8.
yeah.
And he took my entire stack. And then, JRB was playing too. And I used to play in JRB's very famous games at Table One. I guess I was bad enough to play in his games. Um, and he flicked to me $100,000 chip. There's an Aria chip. It's yellow. It's a
I
hundred
didn't
thousand
see.
dollars. He goes, "Here, Jennifer," like, "Put," and it was like, shoo, and I caught it. I didn't even have another $100,000 at home, but I was like a sleepwalker. This is why I'm welcome in this game. I put it in front of me, and then I managed to get all my money back. But that's my Doyle
Wow.
Brunson story. Doyle Brunson is really smart not to have, as they say, the shit end of the straight. You know, of course, Doyle Brunson would have the good end of the straight, not the bad end of the straight.
My only Doyle Brunson story. He was always such a gentleman to me, but I came up to him in my early days. I
Mhm.
still have this jersey I take to the World Series. So Amarillo Slims on there, all
Mhm.
the main event winners. And I walked up to him at
Amazing.
the bike during the Legends and said, "Hey, sir, would you sign this for me?" Right, like 20 years ago. And next to him was Johnny Chan. So then I reached over, I asked Johnny, "Would you sign this?" He goes, "No, I'm not interested." And Doyle turned to Johnny and goes, "Sign the fucking jersey, man." Because Doyle, Johnny doesn't like to sign autographs.
Wow.
But I said, "Thank you very
Wow.
much, Doyle. Thank you, Mr. Chan." I mean, Chan's a legend, so I wanted to have
Mhm.
him on the jersey. Look at my notes. So
I
who's your?
Doyle Brunson signed my copy of Super System. He's like,
Uh,
"Oh, this is a really old. I got it at an old book store." He goes, "This is a really old version. I haven't seen this one for a while." But I love that. Sign the fucking jersey, Johnny. In fact, the very first tournament that I played, aside from the Celebrity Invitational, was Bay 101 because they give you a discount if you're
oh
a
yeah,
bounty. And the very first table I sat down at, Johnny Chan was there, and I was thrilled. I'm like, wow, and nobody like me can sit down at a table and just happen to be
yeah.
sitting down with Johnny Chan from Rounders, and he had this beautiful jade ring. I was like, look at that ring, because I love jewelry.
You love the jewelry. Who's your toughest? So real quick, who's your toughest opponent on high stakes you've battled with the most? Who do
I
you
would say
think?
my toughest opponent, Andrew Roble, is very difficult.
Great player.
Um, yeah, he's very, very difficult. Uh, I would say Rick Solomon, very, very difficult for me to read. And Antonio goes after me, and Antonio's not afraid to stick it in. If he thinks he'll get you to fold by putting $100,000 in the middle,
I know
he will put $100,000 in the middle. So I would say they're my three toughest opponents, but they're all three people that I very much enjoy playing with. So
for sure. And your
there you
favorite player that you play with in high stakes? You have a favorite player?
Well, I love to play with Rob Young because he's like so snarky and funny. He's got that really wicked sense of humor. Like I used to love to play with Roland DeWolf and Neil Channing,
Oh yeah, Roland.
back in the day. I love that English sense of humor. I love playing with JRB. He's so funny. If you can get JRB, Andrew Roble, and Bobby Baldwin at a table,
Wow.
you are just treated to like the best stories, the best history. Andrew Roble is very funny when he's talking about JRB because he used to stake him, and JRB is really, really. He's so fun, and he's so fun, and he's got such a great sense of humor, and he'll bring around a very expensive bottle of wine, and he'll let me have some, so that's always nice.
So are you going to play tournaments? Talk about the WSOP this year. Are you
Hmm.
back there to play? I remember the one year that you made me laugh when you talked about Phil. It was
Hmm.
3% chance. The one time he came and we met and we would
Hmm.
train together now and then at the gym, remember? And then he'd come over here and we'd do the stairs. And I remember doing the stairs with my friend Amber, who you've met, my old
Hmm.
girlfriend, going up the stairs in Santa Monica. He goes, "I didn't touch the rail 99% of the time." He throws out these percentages, right, when he's
Yeah.
when he's talking all the time.
Once he was coming from the Commerce Casino and he said, "Hey, I'm on my way over. Can you order out?" He goes, "Can you order some Chinese food? I'll pick it up on the way." And I go, "I'll do it right now." And he goes, "No, not right now." He goes, "Do it. Call them in 17 and a half minutes. And a half." Because he calculated in his mind how long it would take them to make it and how long it would take him to get there. And he figured that was a perfect amount. So now I'm always used to saying things in percentages. And it's actually really good if I say, it's an 87% chance that I will not do it. That's really, really precise. And
Yeah.
so I talk in percentages like Phil as well.
Are you going? So, as far as the World Series this year, are you going to come? Do you enjoy tournaments? I mean, obviously, you play a lot of cash games. Are you looking forward to playing some of the tournaments? And what would be some of your favorite events at the WSOP?
I used to play tournaments all the time, and that's pretty much all I did. Well, and then I played cash games. Once I discovered high stakes poker, and I'm not even talking about on TV. I'm talking about playing in some of the home games. You're playing in
Yeah,
Ivy's room. Then all of a sudden the tournaments just seem very plodding. Like, you have to wait for a hand. And but the thing with cash games is you bust. You just reach in your pocket and
yeah.
you buy again. You're never out of action. But the tournaments I haven't played for, I think, about 5 or 6 years, because first it was the pandemic. Then I did 3 years of filming Chucky every summer. And then I did 1 year last summer. I filmed what's that show I'm doing? Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
All right.
And so what happened is I surpassed $1 million in tournament earnings, which always sounds good to the layman. Like Jennifer's in the I'm in the Women's Poker Hall of Fame that I'm very proud of. Jennifer's in the Women's Poker Hall of Fame. She has over 1 million in
$1 million.
tournament earnings. But in the poker world, that's like no big deal. I mean, it's like, but the thing is, the money that I earned is all mine because nobody backs me. Like, who would back me? So, but I really want to get my stats up. I love playing. Like I said, I'm an action junkie. So my favorite is Six Max, because one of my leaks is I always think everybody is bluffing. And in Six Max, a lot of times they are, because
Yeah,
you're forced to bluff because you can't just sit around and wait for hands because the action moves so fast. I also like shootouts because you've got nine and then eight and then seven and then six. And it's the easiest way to cash, because if you win your table, it's just like a little sit and go. You're
yeah,
already in the money, and that gets your stats up. I like eight-handed. Eight-handed isn't as great as six-handed, but still it's a start. It's not nine-handed, it's not 10-handed. And also heads up is really good in terms of if you want to be doing a lot of bluffing, because heads up, you kind of have to play almost every hand. But I'm looking forward to, I think the first event I want to play is they have a 10K mystery bounty tournament. I've
oh
never
yeah.
played a mystery bounty tournament, but my Twitter timeline is full of people reaching in and pulling out $100,000. So I think that would be really fun. And I've been playing bounty tournaments online when I got to Canada. And the bounty tournaments are very interesting because the goal is not to get to the end. You get to the final table, which I do a lot. There's nothing left because all the money is in the bounties. The goal of the
Sure.
bounty tournament is to get as many bounties as possible. So that's a very interesting concept, and I think that's going to be super fun.
I
And of
think I
course, the
might.
main event, I want to go deep. I've never gone deep in the main event, and I think that I can do it now. I think the problem with the main event is it's the last thing of the summer. Usually, people put so much importance in the main event, so they're squeezing. It's like not having three bullets when you play in a home game. It's like they're like, I can't go out. It's my last chance. I have to go deep in the main event. Now they're not playing optimally. They're like, just, oh, I just want to own. So you have to kind of, I think in the beginning, you can't be late. You have to come down. You have to play a little fast and loose. You have to kind of accumulate chips because the action moves really fast because they've got to get through 10 days. So I think that was my mistake with the main event when I played it before. It's
Huh.
just really, 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 really wanting to win. And I think when you really, really, really want to win, you play substandard in a substandard manner.
Well, speaking about the main event, Mr. Hellmuth called me back in February and said, "I've got something to announce. Would you
Mhm.
like to have the scoop?" And of course, if Phil
Mhm.
says that, of course I want the scoop.
Of
So
course you want
he
to scoop.
says, "I'm not playing in the main event." I said, "What?" So let me tell you why. So he goes on about, he's too old. It's a test of endurance and not skill.
He's
Do
younger than
you,
me.
what's that?
He's younger than me. He's not too old, but go on.
I'm just saying that these are his things, and I think I've talked to 30 or 40 players in the last couple of months, and we've been running something on PokerOrg almost every day about it. And the last question is always, "Do you think Phil's going to play?" Norman Chad said 1 million to one he will play. So
I think Phil's going to play the main event. Remember when Doyle Brunson said he wasn't going to play the main event anymore? But Doyle was a lot older than Phil Hellmuth.
a
But
little
the main
bit.
event is so prestigious. it I wonder if it's because he's like, Phil Hellmuth is so good at winning tournaments. Like, it's so easy to bounce out on the first day of the main event. Like maybe Phil Hellmuth wants to, if he wants to make a deep run, if he plays it, I don't think that I don't think it's an endurance thing, because Phil has more endurance than anybody. I mean, he can wait out.
Yeah,
There's a reason why he has the most bracelets of anybody. That's his jam, playing in tournaments. So I feel like maybe it was a thing that maybe a protest. The thing about Phil that people don't know, because Phil people are always like, oh my God, is he as much of an asshole as he seemed? Phil is very, very um he very much takes care of the little people, the smaller poker players, because he has a lot of say. And this might have been a little bit of him kind of trying to bring to the people's attention that these days are so grueling, and you
yeah,
can't have people. I think you play 12 hours or something like that. Maybe it was sort of like uh maybe it's sort of like trying to get them to realize maybe they play 8-hour days or whatever, because it really is grueling and you do have to have a lot of
yeah.
stamina. It might have been he's trying to bring it to the attention of the officials, like, hey, can we just not, be doing like a dance marathon? Like, they shoot horses, don't they? It's like there is no need to just kill everybody who's coming to town to play, realize their dream, and play in the main event. I would love,
Right.
like, the WPT tournaments. I think they play for 8 hours. You finish, you can go have dinner with your friends.
Yeah.
I would love if that at the WSOP, if they could have the tournaments not playing around the clock, like just play 8 hours and over and out. That's enough time for anybody to sit in one chair.
Yeah, a lot of players have said, "Hey, let's get rid of the dinner break so we can finish a little earlier, go to dinner in Vegas, hang out, get up the next day
Yeah.
and play." You know
Nobody
what I
wants a
mean?
dinner break. You can bring a little Tupperware of chopped chicken, and I don't know, what do the kids eat these days? And tabbouleh. You can bring that in your little purse, and everyone's always eating at the table anyway. And you can have people bring things. I'm so sad All American Dave is not doing his All American Dave thing
Yeah.
anymore, but times move on. I have not played it in the new venue yet. The last
Oh
time I played
wow,
was, I know, and I'm like scared.
that's
Or
a
like,
long
I said
time.
to
You'll be
Phil, is it
fine.
hard to find parking? And where do we go? What do we do? And I hear it's not. Everybody used to complain about the Amazon room was so cold, and it's like, put on a hoodie. Like, I love it cold. It keeps me alert. And I hear the new venue, it's often too warm. It's like you're in the middle of a desert. You're complaining about too much air conditioning. So I guess it's going to be like when we're playing at Paris. Is it at Paris? It's going to actually be
Parrots and
like,
Horseshoe, but I think the AC went out a couple times over the last couple of
yeah.
years, so that could be a bit of a problem. So if you had to swap, and I
Mm-hmm.
know you're going to say Phil Locke, but if you
Mm-hmm.
had to swap five, I've asked everybody this question. If you had to swap 5% with one player across the series, and obviously Phil's been cashing everything he's playing, would you pick Phil? If you couldn't pick Phil, who else would you
Okay.
pick to swap 5% with?
Well, I'm just gonna say Phil has been on a roll. He
He has.
has been on a roll. I would say if I was gonna swap 5% of with somebody, it would be Phil Hellmuth Jr., because he really has shown
Ah,
the
wow.
ability to go the distance. Yeah, he really knows how to do tournaments. So if he plays the main event, I would swap with him.
Oh, that's a good one. So if you've been there for a while, you played the Rio a lot,
Mhm.
and what do you have any suggestions that you would give the WSOP, the powers that be, to make it a more easier player experience or more fun? Sounds like the new app is going to be pretty amazing. People are saying that's crazy. No more lines. You can do everything in the WSOP
Yeah.
app. It'll tell you the table. Sounds pretty amazing. You have to have that. Anything
Mhm.
else that you would suggest to them? And food has been a big deal. A lot of people are mentioning the food, of course, is not healthy.
Yeah, I do. I really do wish that they could have some sort of food service like All American Day, where people can come and bring healthy food to the table.
Yeah.
Because even at the Rio, there was like hot dogs, and there wasn't like a lot of healthy food alternatives at the Rio, and a lot of the restaurants were closed in the middle of the day, and the poker kitchen was just like really bad. It was like hot dogs, hamburgers. That's fine if someone's coming into town to play, for 4 days. But when people are playing all summer long,
Yeah.
you need a better alternative than that. So I'm not sure what the food situation is at the new venue, but I think that people really do need, like, healthy alternatives, and not just because food is fuel,
For
not just
sure.
junk food. But I can't really make any suggestions because I haven't seen the new venue.
That's
But
true.
I think sometimes there's a wildly divergent um, talent level in terms of the dealers. Like, sometimes you get the dealers that are so crackerjack and really know what they're doing, and then sometimes you'll have dealers games like Badoogie or whatever that don't even know the games.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard because you'll have someone at the table trying to teach them how to, split the pots or do the this or do the thing. And a lot of times when mistakes are made, it's kind of bad because you're supposedly playing at the greatest tournament in the world. But I understand they need lots and lots of dealers and they need them all very quick. And so some I remember this one girl was a dealer and she was like, "Oh my god." She goes, "Can you guys play faster? I'm getting really bored." She literally said that to the poker players. And I'm like, I don't know if you know, we're not here to entertain you.
And that's your job.
She's like, "Oh, can you guys play faster? I'm getting really bored." We're
Well,
like,
you're in Vegas a lot. Do you have our editors like ask Jennifer these couple questions? Like, where is
mhm.
your favorite place to eat in Vegas when you go? You have a
Oh,
favorite?
our favorite restaurant, I'm sure you hear this from a lot of the poker players, is Lotus of Siam. And it's like the best Thai food I imagine in the world. It's off the strip.
Wow.
It's so nice to get off the strip and be sort of in a normal eating environment, and everything is amazing there. We always go there when we go to Vegas. That's our first stop. We love Carbones. Carbones is very hard to get into. I had to ask Brent Hanks to get me a reservation at Carbones. I said, hey, do I? And he said, I think you might have a host because one of my leaks is I like to put money in the slot machines. So he called the host office and said, "Can we get Jennifer a host and can we get a reservation at Carbones?" Phil loves
Wow.
Carbones. We love to when we go in there. They treat us really right, but it's really hard to get a reservation. So I think that's our second favorite place. Love Javiar's. We always send out for Javiar's on High Six Poker. I love they have these shrimp in like a white garlic sauce, just
Yeah.
fabulous. And Blossom is really good too. And next to Blossom, there's another Thai restaurant that's really nice. And I used to love Jose Andre. What was that tapas place at the Aria? I used to love
Uh,
that. I guess they're not there anymore. But Las Vegas is just full of amazing restaurants. There's so many great restaurants to choose from. You can tell by all my recommendations, since I spend a lot of time at the Aria, because that's where I film all the poker shows. But
right.
so, yeah, but I would say Lotus of Siam and Carbones are my two favorite restaurants.
So you've been playing a long time. Has poker leaked over into your life? What life lessons have you learned and transferred from poker over into life and vice versa, maybe?
I used to be such a rube. I used to believe everything people would tell me. I dated a con artist for about 8 months, and he was just pathological liar. It never occurred to me he was lying. Like, why would anybody lie? I used
Yeah,
to trust people. I got sort of exploited and ripped off a lot by my supposedly like they were my friends or business
right.
people that I'm working with. Now I question everything, and if something in my gut says a reason why I think I'm good at poker is because I'm very psychic, and lots of times, you can smell fear rolling off of people. Animals can smell fear. I can smell fear too. So that's like a lot of times when I make like a really weird call, and everyone's like, "How could you make that call? He bet the flop. He check raised the turn. He bet the river." It's like, well, I could smell something. What is that? I smell. It's fear, I believe. So, um, well, what was the question about poker? About
Yeah,
you? What was the
just
question?
what life lessons have you maybe transferred
Oh
from
yeah,
poker
but
to
that's what
life and
that
then
is
life?
crossed over. Yeah, that's
That,
crossed into real life. Now I'm not such a pushover. I don't believe everything people tell me. I'm turned into more like, yeah, like I'll take $500 for things that never happened. Alex is what they say. So I'm a lot more skeptical, and I think that I'm a lot smarter now these days. And I used to be such a babe in the woods, like a little lamb in the woods, just believing everything everybody told me. And I'm not that person anymore.
well, you've been in Hollywood a long time and very, very
Mhm.
successful also. So,
Yeah.
what talk about your new project and why I couldn't grab you the last year and have
Oh
you on the
God, yeah.
show was with Beverly Hills Housewives. So, talk a bit
Mhm.
about the fun you're having on that show, and then you said you might go back on the show again. Is that or
Yeah,
you?
the show. I've always been a huge housewife. Beverly Hills. The only show I watched was Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I've watched it
Oh,
since the very beginning. And I always thought, like, what would it be like to be on that show? Like, have cameras following you everywhere? It's very interesting, and it's impossible to explain unless you've been on one of these reality shows, one of these housewife shows. It's really you have no idea what it's like. And they edit. We filmed so much. I even said in the reunion, they said, "What surprised you the most?" They said, "We shot so much footage that wasn't used. We shot enough footage that we could have done 3 seasons of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills." What it is that you don't have a lot of control over your image. you have control that you maybe can refrain from saying a bitchy snarky thing or being a substandard human being, but for the
Right.
most part they edit the story that they want to tell. And so I was very lucky this season. I got a good edit, which is always nice. And I made friends. The ladies are all really nice. It was harder to penetrate this group of ladies than it is a normal friend group, because it's a show. It's like show business, and they've all been there for a really long time. So it's sort of like when I was an actress and you guest star on a TV show. They're all really nice to you, but they know you're going to be gone in a week. So because these girls have all been working together for so long, I was kind of like running around the outside. There was a story I read. There was like a foreign film director. He won an Oscar, one of those very obscure categories. He stepped outside for a smoke, couldn't get back in. He'd left his Oscar on the table with his buddies. And he was running all the way around the building trying to get back in. And they were rebuffing him because he stepped out. He didn't have any credentials or anything. And he just won an Oscar. And that's what I felt like a little bit with these ladies running around the group trying to find a way in, trying to get in, because
Right.
they're not super open to forming new friendships. And they're all really, really nice. Nobody was mean to me. They're all very, very nice, but everybody's got their own thing going on. They have their own storylines. Everybody's at each other's throats because they all have so much history. And so it's different than when you're on a film set. You'll come together and everybody is all coming together for the first time. And on film sets, I'm always really popular. I always throw parties like, oh, Sunday night we're having a little party at this place, or I'm gonna buy everybody dinner at that place. And I like to make everybody laugh in between the takes. And it's really, really easy to make friends on film sets, or if you're in a movie, or if you're on a TV show. But this is a different thing, and it's a little bit like what I said, like if you're guesting on a show like Friends or whatever, and you're not part of the main group. So, and I wasn't the actual housewife. It's called a friend of. So the friend
A
of,
friend
you're
of.
not even filming most of the time. You go to the parties, you go on the trips, but they don't really get to know you.
Did they poke you to do more drama? Was there any kind of that going on for
Well, I was
reality shows?
hearing I was hearing that some people are like, "Oh, you have to get in a fight. All the housewives get in a fight." And I'm like, "Well, that's why I'm not a housewife. I'm a friend of. Friends of don't have to get in a fight." Like Kathy Hilton was the other
Okay.
friend of, and she never ever got in a fight. The first season she got dragged into a fight by Lisa Rinna, I believe, dragged her into a fight.
Okay.
But as a friend of, it's pretty easy work. I would say I'm not the cupcake, I'm the sprinkles on top of the cupcake. Everybody loves sprinkles, but my role isn't that substantial. But I, had a lot of fans from the show. It was really fun. It was a very interesting experience. And, I know what it's like to be on the Housewives.
That's crazy. Have you written anything down lately you can share that, or maybe it's sometimes good to keep things sacred until they happen, that you want to happen, that you
Mhm.
project, that you want to have happen in your life? Like you made all these things happen. You want a bracelet. You're on Beverly Hills Housewife. You done some great acting
Well, I
with
have a lot of
Netflix.
things, but my poker goals, which I write down before I,
Okay. What is
go to the
okay.
World Series of Poker, I'll usually write like I want to do cash 5 times, or I want to go deep in the main event. I
Okay.
always write I want to win another bracelet. Then sometimes I'll say I want to make 2 final tables. And it's good to have a goal. It's good to have something to
Yeah.
work towards. And it also, like I said, helps you manifest things. And then I'll also say, I want to have dinner with these friends here. The great thing about the World Series of Poker is your friends from all over the world.
Right.
My friends from England are there, people that I met in France and Canada. Everybody is here. I'm sure you've heard it's like a big summer camp.
Yeah.
It's so fun to see everybody. And so I try to have a balance between just grinding, and then maybe I take a day off and I see a Cirque du Soleil, or I go out with some friends, or I go to Crystals and I go shopping, buy a little Dolce Gabbana. And I think that that's important. And then the other thing that's very important during the World Series of Poker is to exercise. It's hard to get up
True.
a little 1 hour earlier, but there really is a correlation between strong body and strong mind. I think it's a big temptation to eat junk food, myself also. But if you're eating healthy, it gives you more stamina. So, you want to give yourself all the help that you can get in
Yeah.
terms of surging towards your goal. I'm so impressed by, my boyfriend and I love Corey Earing and Frankie C. Like they do the
Yeah.
best
Frankie.
poker vlogs. And we're so interested in their story because it's such a personal story. I love Daniel Negreanu's poker vlogs. And so every year I think like, oh, maybe I should do a poker vlog.
You should.
Yeah, just kind of this year I was like, oh, maybe I can hire someone to follow me around with the camera, and then if I bust out a tournament, I'm sure I could squeeze out a tear or two and have people feel my pain. But usually every summer I'm too busy like trying to win a bracelet or make the money or whatever to remember to turn the camera on myself while I'm walking down the hallway and talk about things that happened that day. But maybe this year I'll do a little bit of a
Maybe.
poker vloggy.
Maybe you could be a guest star in Daniel's vlog. Who knows? I just
Yeah,
talked to
yeah.
Daniel a couple days ago. He's part of this little WSOP series, and
Yeah,
uh,
Daniel's great. Daniel and Phil Hellmuth, I think they understood very early on that it's a business, like an entertaining business. Like they both understand the importance of putting on a show. And that's why they have persevered. They were there when the poker boom started 20 years ago or even earlier. And that's why they're still giants in the industry today because they understand that.
I've got a couple extra questions. I'll let you go. I appreciate your time today. A couple things. I have you here, listening to you talk about acting, and I was an actor for such a long time in New York.
Mhm.
That's why I left. I was an acting theater major in college and moved to New York like you to be a star. I wasn't dropped off at the YMCA though, but
Mhm.
I found an apartment in Hoboken. But I have to ask you a couple quick acting things, and then one last question about poker. So you talked about you like to make people laugh in between takes. You worked with
Mhm.
Jim Carrey. Was he making you laugh
Oh my
between
God.
takes? There's some famous
Jim
outtakes of you guys. So
Right. Jim Carrey was amazing. I feel like he's a virtuoso in terms of comedy. And the thing is, whatever you can do well, you want to do, don't want to do, he wanted to do drama. And not the terrible thing, but the thing about Hollywood, they reward you for doing the thing that you don't usually do. So when he got his Oscar nomination, it was for doing drama. But he
yeah,
is the most brilliant comedian ever. And when we were working with him, he would do it. He was really bad in the first few takes, and then he would break through. And right at the point where everyone's like, "Oh my god, this is great, we got it, let's move on." He was just getting started, and he'd be dirling curly cues and doing this, and pretty soon running up against the wall, slamming the toilet seat on his head, doing stuff that nobody ever would think about. So I loved working with him. He liked me, so he'd give me funny lines because we were not allowed to improvise. And I think some other actors were a little intimidated by that because when you're working with Jim Carrey, it's a Jim Carrey show. But I
yeah.
knew it was a Jim Carrey show. And I just really appreciated when he would give me lines to say, like in the very first scene, he goes, Jennifer. He goes, when I walk out the door, squeeze my ass. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yes. Me great. I was like, okay, you told me to squeeze. At the time, he was making $18 million, which was the highest anybody ever get paid. Okay, I guess I'll squeeze the $18 million ass. And then at the end, when I gained custody of the kids, they just had me storming out without any lines. And he gave me a good closing line, which was great. He goes, Jennifer, say to your ex-husband, don't you have a giant check you should be writing? So I had an exit line. And when you have
All
an
right.
exit line, that makes people remember you. So he's very generous that way. I really loved working with him.
Well, do you a couple things? One cap on that discussion. Do you look forward to going back to acting? I know you just did the Chucky series. Do
Mhm.
you still read scripts? Is something that you still want to do in the future?
Yeah.
You have
You
so
know
many
what?
things you do.
I
So
love acting. I love doing Chucky every summer. I love that character. It was like so wonderful to go to Toronto. We had the great crew, great cast. And, Don Mancini, who created Chucky, is one of my best friends. But yes, I thought that I was done with acting when I got really obsessed with poker. But then when I started doing the Chucky again, I realized I really love acting. And
yeah.
I have a manager now, and I got offered this summer. I got offered 2 movies and a television pilot. But I kind
Wow.
of like, I'm not sure if I'm doing another season of Housewives. And I kind of want to spend the summer at the World Series of Poker because I really miss it, especially watching Phil going into the Commerce Casino every single day and making final tables. It's like I remember how great that was, and I want to do that again. I want to get my stats up. Hmm.
I think Phil's going to win a bracelet this summer. I really do. He's really on a roll, playing really well, and
He's really on a roll. He
he
always
really
goes
is.
very, very deep in these tournaments. Yeah.
So I have to ask you, you fell in love with the game. What now, after 20 years or more playing, what do you love about poker the most? I'm just curious. I know you seem like a very competitive person. You like to get in there and play more hands. But what do you love about the
Yeah.
game that you look forward to every time you sit down?
Well, you know what? I am very competitive. And when I was a kid, I was always like, could when playing baseball or softball hit the ball further than anybody in the neighborhood and run faster. And then a strange thing happened. Puberty is all of a sudden the boys, what used to be a home run for me, could only barely get me to first base. And the boys could run faster and jump higher and play baseball better. But poker, you can be very competitive on a very even playing field with the boys. You can play just as it's all in the brain. So I actually really love that. I love using my brain. I love the feeling in a poker tournament where you look around and all the tables have fallen away and you realize there's only 3 tables left and you're like, oh my God, look at me here. I'm going to make the final table, or I'm, going to go the distance. That's the greatest feeling in the world. And I like using my brain. When you're playing poker, you're always thinking. And you're, even if you're not in the hands, you're like watching the other players. I like the community of it, the camaraderie, even though a lot of times in tournament situations, people aren't really talking, but just to be around a bunch of people, like minded people. Poker players are so intelligent. Like, I love going out with Phil and his friends, and the things they talk about are not, I mean, they'll talk about hand histories and stuff, but it's not the way that people in Hollywood talk. Everybody in Hollywood, basically, it's all about the business and about, acting and Oscars and Emmys or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with it. I love talking about
Yeah.
Oscars as much and movies that I've seen as much as anybody else. But it's a totally different world. It's a very masculine world, and it's just fun to be around all that testosterone.
Well, I've been trying to get you to talk to me for months. You've been so gracious, and
Thank
it's so
you.
fun to have Jennifer Tilly here. And I hope you win a bracelet this summer. Yeah, you can just got
Thank
to write
you.
that down a few times. You probably will for
Thank
sure.
you. Well, I love you, Craig, and I wasn't ducking and dodging you. I have just been
I
really.
know.
Are you going to be at the World Series of Poker this
I'm
summer?
going to be there. I'm going to invite you to the PokerOrg Lounge starting the 24th. We have a lounge there. It's between, you haven't been there, it's right
Mhm,
next to the Paris side. We had it last year, very popular. No line for the restrooms
mhm,
now. And
mhm.
I'm going to be teaching Qigong, some yoga, and some meditation
Oh,
right
that sounds
before
perfect.
every main event day, like probably about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. So you
Oh,
can
I love
come,
that.
sit down for
Mhm,
20 minutes, get
mhm.
still, breathe, get prepared, and say Om a couple times and just have some
Sound
fun.
body, sound mind. I think that's a great idea. Well, I'll see you at the World Series of Poker then.
I'll see you there, Jennifer.